Hey, I'm Jared Duckett here with Caleb Gussner today, and we're here to talk about when do you want a doctor to buy into your practice. So, Caleb, let's jump in, man. How many times, we were talking before we hit the record button, like how many times have you gotten this question like in the past week or so?
Yeah, we've had a couple clients and prospective clients actually come to us, worked on an M&A deal recently on, hey, I have an associate in the practice. I'm looking at potential partnership with them. Is now the right time? Is the practice feasible? Is the opportunity the right time for both him and myself to allow him to buy in? So, top of mind for us right now, just because we've been working through it the last couple of weeks, but great topic today.
Yeah, so how do you answer it, man? Let me be the client, right? Caleb, I've got a really good associate. They've been with me for, I don't know, a year, 18 months, 2 years. You don't have to name a time, but they're really good, and they're asking the question, like, when can I buy in? Like, I really want to be a part of what you guys and gals are doing. What do you say? How do you answer?
Yeah. So, couple things. Obviously, we'll get to the numbers here in a second. Numbers are important. First things first is, are you guys aligned, right? Partnership alignment is extremely, extremely crucial. You know this, right? Having a business partner, a couple business partners. If you're not in alignment, we're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
It's a heck of a lot easier to get divorced 4 times than it is break up a business partnership.
True statement.
Right? Unfortunate statement, but it's a true statement.
Yeah.
Making sure you're in alignment of where you guys are going, right? Dental, you always have the exit, right? In the back of your mind of what does that exit look like? When are we going to exit? What are we going to grow? Are we just going to optimize this location? Do we want to be multi-site owners? What are we trying to achieve together in this partnership, right? I think it's super crucial. A little fluffy, right, to start, but super, super crucial. If you don't have that, we're in trouble in terms of longevity of the relationship. The second component of it, right, which is where we start getting into the meat and the bones, is it a right time from a cash flow perspective and evaluation perspective, right? We don't want future owners to come in and drag both parties down. What do I mean by that? Let's say we're talking about a practice that's doing, $1.2 million top line, right? You got 2 dentists in there. Probably if we're doing $1.2 million, even if we're GP.
Probably not a lot of dentistry, enough dentistry to go around. Fair?
Yeah, 100%. We're probably a little concerned with the cash flow perspective of how much meat is left on the bone at the end of the day. So ensuring that we have enough cash in the pool that both parties are going to be satisfied. What do I mean by that? To me, NOI needs to be a minimum 20%. And when I think through the risk that you have to endure to become an owner, there's got to be some economic value. What do I mean by that? For me, you look at the median or mean annual wage of a dentist, just think $225, $250. It's kind of that, bottom of the barrel, like this is what I'm willing to take. So when we're looking at the cash flow projection of a buy-in to both parties, post-debt for the new owner and post-tax, really we got to be at that bare minimum $225,000 take-home. And so if we're at $1.2 million top line, running, let's just say 65% overhead, not going to be a whole lot left, right? In that example I was talking to you about earlier before we hopped on here, that location was $1.4 million, so not a bad practice. New associate, been around for 6 months, has more dental experience, meaning, he's been practicing for 5 years, so he has the clinical experience. It's just the butts in the chairs, the production, the amount of dentistry to share right now doesn't make sense to have 2 owners.
Yeah. So, and one thing, if you guys just heard NOI 20% and you're like, I have no idea what NOI means, go back and watch some of our other videos to go dissect your practice to make sure there's 20%. So first off, make sure you're aligned, right? It's kind of like a marriage that we talk about a lot of times. You date your wife for a while, right? And make sure you guys are aligned with what you want to do with your life. Same thing with your associate. You're not dating your associate, but if you will, you are. This is almost just as important as a marriage.
That, right? HR.
HR didn't hear that, but I mean, get to know your associate, where you want to go, and make sure you guys are going in the same direction. And then you got to know your numbers first off, right? I mean, you got to know what your NOI is. And then if I heard you right, Caleb, I'll say it back this way, is there has to be enough dentistry to go around, but then also when they buy in, that they're probably bringing, the money they're bringing to the table is usually in the form of debt. So they need to be able to cash flow more than the debt that they're paying out. So there's a little bit of a delta at least, and then make sure they're making what you said, 250 or whatever that mean on what they should be making if they're an associate elsewhere. Is that fair?
Correct. And really the third component of this, which most people think is kind of counterintuitive, is the valuation needs to make sense to you as the seller. What do I mean by that? You know, a lot of times I think people are thinking, hey, if I can get my associate a lower valuation, it's better, you know, they're going to buy in, they're going to stick around, we can grow it. That, you know, that's true in a sense, but you are taking chips off the table, and that is most likely your most valuable asset that you own. And I would rather 10 out of 10 times offer ownership in a more valuable asset that has better cash flow than a lesser valued asset with less cash flow. Why? Because one, the opportunity risk I'm giving up of that future appreciation on those shares or those chips that I'm taking off the table. But in addition to that, it's going to put us both in a really bad predicament if I sell low with poor cash flow. We're going to be struggling for a while, right? We got to get that thing ramped up super quickly. And so, you know, I tell people oftentimes, like, it is much better for you, right? Taking off, you get a little bit of cash, take those chips off the table, but it's a lot better for your associate too. It's not a selfish perspective to take of, hey, I want my asset to be worth more because it's going to be better for you in the long run, right? We've had those conversations before. In-house too, just in general business of it's got to benefit both parties, but it has to benefit the seller as well. You know, we talked about benefiting the buyer of cash flow. It's got to benefit the seller as well from both a cash flow perspective and, you know, they're divesting their most valuable asset.
It has to be a win-win, right? On both sides. Yeah. And I'm just thinking out loud because it's probably too much to go into right now. Maybe a topic for a future video is, how many times, Caleb, do you see maybe a single doc practice that's looking to sell a portion of their interest to another associate that they're thinking the valuation of the practice is similar to like a DSO sale, right? And is it fair to say there's a difference, right, when you're doing a doctor-doctor transaction as opposed to DSO?
Yeah, you know, you have an associate coming to buy in, or you're going to sell your practice outright to another doctor. Those doctors don't have the same buying power that DSOs do that are backed by private equity. Those deals are structured completely different too, right? You know, oftentimes it's kind of funny, you know, you most likely will have a lower valuation in a doctor for doctor transaction. You're probably going to get more cash.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's kind of a hot button topic in the industry right now, but when private equity comes in, that valuation is going to look really good on paper, rolled equity, things like that. And you know, there are clients that we've had that have been super successful in those, have had great exits. And I'm not saying anything bad about those. It's just a different structure. It's a different timetable. It's a different approach to how you want to take those chips off the table.
Yeah. So think about the valuation and what that looks like. Just know you're not going to get a DSO style valuation. Expect to get that in cash from that associate. So that's great, Caleb, man. I mean, we talk to clients all the time about this. Make sure you're aligned. You got to dive into the numbers. If you guys are listening to this and like, man, I don't know if it's the right time, reach out to us. Right? Happy to dive in and help and go from there. But probably one of the most important decisions that you're going to make in your dental practice is there's a couple of inflection points, like when you're starting, letting people buy in, and what the exit. And they're all fairly equally important, but three big decisions you want to try to go 3 for 3 on if you can.
What's the old saying? You might have 2 or 3 wives, 2 or 3 kids, 2 or 3 dogs, but you're probably going to have one practice.
That's it.
Right? So very, very crucial decision.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it, Caleb.
Yeah, you bet.